Hey guys, I thought I'd pop in and say hello. I haven't shown my face on my channel since I don't know how long, and I hope you're all doing really well. Today I made some Daisy inspired DIYs. I made a gnome, a tiered tray, daisy sign, and a really pretty wreath. I used mostly Dollar Tree supplies, and I did use some daisies that I bought on Temu. I'll show you what they are, and they were pretty inexpensive. I think they worked out really well. Along with that, I used a few things that I had on hand. As always, I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. To make my daisy gnome, I'm using one of the Dollar Tree terracotta pots. It measures about 3.5 inches in diameter and about 3 3/4 inches in height. If you want to make one for a tiered tray, just use a smaller pot and scale down the supplies. You can pretty much paint it any color you'd like. I'm giving mine a coat of white acrylic paint. I'm only painting the bottom of the pot white because I'm painting the rim around the top with my dark green acrylic paint. To make the gnome's beard, I'm using some white silk aster flowers, and I picked these up at the Dollar Tree. You can use any type of flowers as long as they have long pointy ends. I pulled 3 of the heads off of the main stem and then pulled them apart. To attach them, I'm adding some hot glue onto the lower part of the pot, folding the flower in half, and then placing it down. To make sure the flower stayed folded, I added some hot glue in between it. I added some hot glue to the side of my first flower and then attached my second. I'm attaching the next 2 flowers by placing some hot glue just above the first 2. I'm attaching these flowers closer together than the bottom 2. I'm adding the last 2 flowers and I'm centering one over the other. For the gnome's nose and the center of my daisy, I'm using a large wooden bead. I already had this on hand and I gave it a coat of yellow acrylic paint. I added some hot glue in the center of the top flower and attached it in place. To decorate around the top edge of the pot, I'm using some of the Dollar Tree's reindeer moss. This part was really easy. I added some hot glue on the top outside edge and then added on a thick layer of the moss. As I worked my way around and I came to the gnome's nose, I made sure to add enough moss to cover the top of it. The moss can be a bit messy, and so to help hold it in place, I like to use some clear hairspray. It's not a perfect fix, but it definitely helps. And all I did was spray a heavy coat onto the moss. Before I add the succulent, I need something to attach it to, and I'm using a half styrofoam ball. I had this left over from a past project. You can always use a piece of floral foam, and they do sell that at the Dollar Tree. I cut it to size and used my glue gun to attach it inside the pot. I'm adding one succulent to the top of my daisy gnome, but you can add as many as you'd like, and I found this pretty one is fairly large at the Dollar Tree. To attach it, I simply removed the label and pushed it through the center of the styrofoam. I added some hot glue around the succulent and then filled it in with more reindeer moss. To help hold it all in place, I once again used some of my hairspray. You can use your daisy gnome pot as is. I actually made a small riser for mine. I'm using one of the Dollar Tree wood slices. These were meant to be ornaments, and there's a little hole in them, but you'll never see it because the gnome will cover it. To add on some feet, I'm actually using some beads, and these came from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm adding on 6 of them, and I attached them on the bottom with my E6000. Once the glue had dried, all that's left to do is place down my daisy gnome, and now it's ready for a tiered tray or just cute decor in any room. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below, leaving me a thumbs up, and to all my returning friends, I'm always so happy to see you. Getting started, I'm using a 14-inch grapevine wreath from Michaels. You need to make sure that it's not woven too tightly together because you'll be tucking the stems of the flowers in between the grapevines. This step is optional, but to help the flowers blend in, I'm giving mine a coat of white spray paint. For my wreath, I'm using white daisies, and I bought mine on Temu. They come 5 stems per package and 5 flower heads on each stem. I'll be using 55 of the white daisies on my wreath. And their current price is $3.27 per package. I'm cutting my daisies at 2 different lengths. I'm cutting 25 of them at 2 inches and 30 of them at 3 inches. As you're cutting them, if you're a little off, not to worry, because you'll never notice on the wreath. I'm starting to attach them, and I'm using my 2-inch length daisies. I added some hot glue onto the stem and then tucked it between the grapevines. I started working my way around the wreath, doing my best to evenly space them, then I just kind of tucked them in here and there. As you're adding them, don't worry if they're not all the same height, because once the wreath is put together, you'll never even notice. With all my 2-inch daisies in place, I'm now adding on the 3-inch. I'm working my way around the wreath, adding them in here and there, and I'm doing my best to keep them raised just a bit over the 2-inch daisies. I'm adding in 30 of the 3-inch cut daisies, but you can always add in more. I've added all my white daisies onto the wreath, and you can leave yours white and just fill it out, but I'm going to add in a pop of color, and I'm using some yellow daisies, and I picked these up on Temu as well. I'm using 3 stems, but this time instead of cutting them at 2 and 3 inches, I'm popping off the flower heads. When I'm done, I'll have 15 in total. I have 15 in total, and to fill in any of those open spaces, I'm hot gluing the flowers directly onto the grapevine wreath. As I'm filling in the open spaces, I'm doing my best to keep the wreath shape as round as possible. With all the daisies attached, I'm making a simple bow for my wreath, and I'm using a 1.5 inch white wired ribbon. I already had this on hand. I had picked it up a while back at Michael's. To make the bow, I'm starting by giving myself about an 8-inch tail of ribbon. I pull that out of the way and start folding my ribbon at about 8 inches back and forth until I have 3 loops on each end. I fold my bow in half to find the center. I then place a piece of floral wire around it and twist it tightly on the bottom. When I was done, I matched the ribbon with my original tail and then cut them both off at an angle. Then to finish up, I fluffed out the loops. Before attaching it to my wreath, I'm snipping off the excess wire in the back. I added my bow to the wreath by first opening a space between the flowers and then hot gluing it onto the grapevine. With the bow attached, you can hang your wreath as is. I'm going to add just a little bit of green to mine. I'm using some leaves that I had left over from a past project, and I'm cutting them in half. You can add on as many as you'd like, and just like the yellow daisies, I used my glue gun and attached them randomly here and there. Now that I'm done adding in the leaves, this pretty daisy wreath is ready to hang. To make my daisy sign for a tiered tray, I'm using 5 of the small wooden dice from the Dollar Tree. I'm painting all 5 of my dice with my white acrylic paint. Now that my dice are dry, I'm adding the word daisy to them. You can always print that out on your Cricut, but I'm going to use some stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'm using the black and white stickers, and for some strange reason, they only gave me one floral eye, so I'm going to cut the L and turn that into an eye. And now I'm spelling out the word daisy with my 5 letters. I'm attaching the dice together using my E6000. The glue has dried and now I'm going to add some little feet on the bottom. This step is completely optional. You can always leave them as is. I'm using 4 of the small wooden blocks from the Dollar Tree, and if you don't have any of these, you can always cut a tumbling tower block in half. I painted mine with black acrylic paint, and now that the paint has dried, I'm going to add them to the bottom of my sign. I turned my sign over and I glued 2 on each end. With the glue dry, I'm wrapping the feet with this pretty black and white polka dot ribbon that I picked up at Michael's. I cut 2 strips that would fit and then I hot glued them around the feet. As an accent on my sign, I'm using this large wooden pot from this Dollar Tree 3-pack. I painted mine with some yellow acrylic paint. As an accent, I'm using my same black and white polka dot ribbon. I cut it to size and then used my glue gun to attach it. I'm adding some small daisies to my daisy sign, and I picked mine up on Temu. They cost me $2.51. I snipped a few off, enough to fill out the pot. I added some hot glue inside the flower pot and then arranged the daisies. I used my glue gun and I attached the flower pot on the top of the Y. To finish up, I cut 3 more daisies and I added those on top of the D. And now that I'm done, my daisy tiered tray sign is ready to display. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun crafting these Daisy-inspired DIYs with me. If you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. If you're looking for more home decor ideas, I will leave some linked at the end of this video as well as in my description. And I hope you all have a safe and amazing day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody!